Now here's a sad story. This is the Onkyo ASV420 amplifier that I was asked to take a look at in exchange for the turntable. This was apparently used in a shop somewhere, but presumably like a garage-like building or something outdoors. And I would imagine they were probably driving car speakers with this thing. First things first, this thing was absolutely filthy inside. I had to give it a bath to clean it up. And when I did, I couldn't even see any specifics on the components in here or anything. That's just how bad it was. But when I got done giving it a bath, look what I found on the heatsink. See that over there? Yum, yum. Burned parts. These two transistors over here are dead shorted. And they've blown a couple components off the board. There's a little something down in there I think might have been a diode once upon a time. It obliterated the markings on the board, so I can't tell for sure. And then there was something else over here, and I can't recognize it either, and it doesn't seem to have any markings on it. But you can see it left a little chimney trail of smoke. And given the car speakers are typically low impedance speakers, my guess is that they were driving some of those. They turned this thing up, and boom, that was the end of that. Manufacturing date codes on the components in this thing indicate that it was probably put together in either very late 1997 or early 1998, but what a bummer. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to fix it because there's a number of other indications that it's been hot at other places in here, like around these transistors and stuff right here. There's a bloated cap back there, another hot spot here. Who knows how much damage is lurking in the shadows on this thing, and I don't imagine that I really want to take it apart either. I had to take it apart a little bit to get those two transistors out to test them, and I did not enjoy that. There's a lot of screws and a lot of sub-assemblies that have to come out of here, and I'm just not interested in taking this thing apart and putting it back together that often. That's a pretty raw deal. Look at that. The Schwanzman is out and about today on Memorial Day. What a bummer. Neither of those things are what this video is about, however. Check this thing out. This has to be, hands down, the biggest, baddest window air conditioner that I think I have ever seen. Bought this off of a guy about a year ago. It's been taken very good care of. It was very clean and in one piece. A lot of things that break on these Kenmore air conditioners are not broken, although I never got the front door for it. This thing is kicking. It is every bit of 2 foot long and just about 2 feet wide as well. Bigger than any window I've got in the Roach Palace, which is kind of, well, I have one window that it'll fit, but it's in a room that I don't want to cool, so that doesn't do anyone much of any good. Here's the thing that's interesting, okay? Let's take the front cover off this thing, which is easy to do. It's also easy to take the chassis out of this thing. You got a grab handle right here, and you undo a couple screws around the unit, and then you're set. The chassis just slides right out of the outer shell, give or take a little bit of finagling. I need to find a filter for it. I didn't get one of those. Well, I maybe did, but I can't find it now. Here's the thing that's interesting. Check this out. This probably dates from the early 1990s, and it was probably made by Whirlpool Corporation. But look at that BTU hour rating. 14,000 BTUs worth of output per hour. Folks, that's more than 1 ton's worth of cooling capacity from this unit. That's pretty amazing. What's even more amazing, you'd think this was a 220/240 unit. It's not. Runs on 115 volts AC, contains 52.5 ounces of refrigerant 22. And on the front here, it actually says high efficiency, which is probably true. Probably some of the secret of either playing fast and loose with the specifications, or, whoops, this thing is actually efficient enough to get that kind of cooling off of a 15 amp branch circuit, which is all it calls for. It doesn't have a 20 amp plug on it or anything. Get this out here, see if I can do it without shocking myself. There it is. Starting to get the typical molded plug disease. You can see it starting to bubble out and melt there. Let's go ahead and power this thing up, and then I'll show you what it looks like inside. Now, I went ahead and cleaned this thing out, and when I was cleaning it out, I had to remove some of these fiberglass bats from it here, so I've got to put those back in at some point. They need to be glued back on because they were already working on falling off. And I think I might have a fan that's slipping on its drive shaft because this thing doesn't seem to be moving the kind of air that it should be. So I've got to take a look at that. Let's go ahead and plug it in and have a run up and see what happens. I don't think you can actually see it, but right past these grills is the compressor. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. You can hear what the compressor sounds like. Sounds pretty good for its age. And the fan comes up to speed. And it starts things to cooling down. Gets right down to business pretty quickly, too. Sliding door on the front. Some of you probably know what this is for, but back in the day when Sears was selling these Kenmore air conditioners brand new, they had this concept of an air freshener that went into a special compartment back here. I only dimly remember this stuff. I was pretty young back then. But what I remember is this packet that had like little green pellets in it or something, and you put the packet in there, and then as you opened it up, you could control how much air freshener made its way into the rest of the airstream. See how cool this thing is getting. There's my thermometer at. There it is. Oh, and that's where my air pressure's all going. Not very efficient to send it right back out there into the heat now, is it? Let's see what this thing's doing. Putting out about 66.5 degrees. A little bit colder in spots. There's about 50.5 degrees Fahrenheit, of course. And so it's cooling pretty well. The ambient temperature out here today is probably right around 85 degrees. We're supposed to have a high of about 92. So summer is definitely right around the bend. This is a unique control. Most air conditioners have these, but most of them only work on the output side, which is to say that, you know, they allow you to exhaust air through this flap up here. This thing actually lets you bring in fresh air to be cooled with this other linkage down here that operates from somewhere behind the evaporator coil, which is kind of a unique feature. And then of course there's the more conventional flapper door up there, which is supposed to let you exhaust air outside as a sort of crude exhaust fan. Let's get the cover off this thing and have a look inside. Here it is, the Public Relations Department for a very serious piece of air conditioning equipment. This is the fan that draws air over the condenser coil, of course, and then you have the fan motor out here, which is actually intended to be serviced. How many people you suppose ever do that, where it says re-oil annually? Of course, this is definitely a Whirlpool air conditioner. You can see there's the FSP logo that they use on all their factory parts. So there's that thing. The previous owner did take pretty good care of this thing. They were always careful to take it down and clean it out. And so the dirt buildup and the rust buildup in this thing is very minimal. It's in very good condition. And over here we have the compressor, and really the size of this compressor surprises me. It's very small. It's a Japanese-made compressor made by, I know there's multiple ways of pronouncing this. I don't know which one's correct. I've always pronounced it Matsushita Electric. The company that we know is Panasonic today, but some people pronounce that Matsushita. So whatever the correct pronunciation is, or if you have your own favorite one that you can stick in there, just go ahead and imagine me saying that instead. But this should be a pretty darn high quality compressor. Now I wonder if maybe if this unit was repaired under warranty at some point in its life, because on this on the compressor body right here is a sticker that says warranty audit and gives a label number, compressor number, serial number, stuff like that. So I'd wonder if maybe this thing didn't have its compressor replaced at some point in its life. Now you can also see the intake and exhaust vents here. This one you can't normally see because it's behind the evaporator coil. And of course you have the sealed cooling system. There's a pinch-off point here, and there's another one over here by this capillary tubing. I'm not sure which one would be used to fill the system. Maybe both of them were used for different purposes. It's hard to tell. And then there's a filter dryer right here. You got the condenser coil. Got your squirrel cage blower assembly in here. Got the evaporator coil, and of course this thing does attempt to slosh water around inside itself. There's a little ring down here to help it do that, to keep its internal workings cool. There you can kind of see how the fiberglass bats came unglued and where I've got to put them back. I think just some simple general purpose adhesive ought to take care of that in no time at all. Now for some power consumption readings. Now you can see that we've got about 120 volts out here at the point of the electrical cord. Now this is rather thin extension cord to be using with this, I will admit that, but it's the only extension cord I had that was long enough, and for the short duration of these video snippets it ought to be plenty good enough. But you may see a fair amount of voltage drop when I kick this thing on. I guess we'll see. I'll get some footage of the compressor starting up from a little closer so you can hear it better maybe. Oh yeah, pretty fair amount of voltage drop on that. Still well within the safe limits though. Let's see what we're pulling. Oh yeah, that thing's pulling pretty good. You definitely want this thing on a circuit all by itself. There it's dropping off a bit as the compressor overcomes the effort of having to build pressure in the system. They're not too far off on their nameplate rating, are they? That will definitely get your electrical meter spinning, no doubt about that. Price of being comfortable, I guess. There you have it. One seriously big 115 volt air conditioner. Wowee. Over 1 ton of cooling capacity in this bad boy.